Welcome to Dr. Abdulkader Al-Guneid's book launch today. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I am currently holding his book that, as you can see, I have taken to quite a few locations with me because it was so incredibly gripping. It is book launch day, so what's quite traditional is to have a book launch event. Obviously, we are living in COVID times, so sadly it's being done over Zoom, but the advantage of it being done over Zoom is that I can moderate. I live in the UK and the good doctor lives in Canada, and so it's actually a huge honor and a privilege to me for me to introduce him. For those of you who don't know, my name is Ella Al-Shamahi. I stumbled there for a second because I'm of Yemeni origin, and my actual name is Ella Al-Shamahi, for anyone who's slightly confused. And I'm a paleoanthropologist, and I'm also a TV presenter. And enough about me, because we're absolutely honoured to have the doctor with us today. And I will often refer to him as the doctor just because Yemenis often refer to a doctor simply by doctor, just out of so much respect. But I kind of need to do an introduction to the doctor, but honestly, I actually don't know where to start. I think I'll try to keep it brief and hopefully we can include much more background and colour as we progress. But Dr. Abdulkader Al-Guneid is a physician, a doctor, and a human rights activist from Taiz in Yemen, which is the third city. It's actually my mother's hometown, so it's very dear to me and many, many people. It's seen as quite an intellectual hub in Yemen, as somewhat independent in thought. It's also worth pointing out something absolutely interesting, I think, to many people, which is this absolutely fascinating line of activism that the doctor has had for a very, very long time, from, civil wars from many decades ago. The doctor was actually described by the Huffington Post as a vocal critic of the Houthis, a tireless chronicler of the war, and that is because the doctor went to social media to post what were seen as honest and independent updates from the ground that were used extensively by all kinds of media outlets, from the BBC all the way through to Al Jazeera, The Independent, and the Financial Times. The doctor wrote this book, Prison Time in Sana'a, which is available just about anywhere you get a book online, but it's also available at Arabian-publishing.com. About his prison time in Yemen. He was captured by the Houthi rebels or militias and their allies, and was detained for some 300 days. It's an absolutely incredible story. I was really moved by this book, I have to say, Doctor. I haven't actually spoken to you about how impressed I was with the book, because I kind of wanted to tell you now, in this platform. But I thought it was just absolutely brilliant. It's so easy to read, and I think for so many people, when you tell them there's a book about prison, they might be nervous. They might think it's really heavy. And it's the exact opposite of heavy. It's so readable. It's painful at times, but it is absolutely an incredible read. Thank you so much for writing it for us. And I know you wrote it on your phone, which I just find absolutely incredible. There are so many aspects of this book, Doctor, that I just thought were so fascinating, including the way you divide the book. So the doctor divides the book into three parts. The first one is essentially a diary in some ways, or a kind of an account of the prison itself. And the most fascinating thing, I think, in that is that instead of it just being about pain and complicated politics, you actually talk to us about the politics of Yemen and the complexities of Yemen, but also the really fascinating cultural anthropology of Yemen through the prisoners, through these absolutely fascinating characters who, I mean, this doesn't read like a prison book to me. This reads like something quite different. It reads like you could be in any other location, talking about the different people coming in and out. And I just found it absolutely astonishing. And then you move on to the second part, which is essentially an account of the politics of Yemen in about 30 pages. And I just think it's one of the best primers I have read. It's so succinct and it's so thorough. And I love how honest you are and to the point you are. And then, of course, there's a final reflection at the back there. So just thank you so much for writing this. I know it's a horrible, I think in so many ways for me to say thank you to you, because obviously it was an absolutely horrific experience that you went through. And I think that leads me to really my first question, which is, when you describe being taken, I think, you know, a lot of people are kind of aware of how it is sometimes in war or in conflict when somebody's taken as a prisoner. One of the things that really struck me, really at the beginning of the book, and it's kind of a line that goes throughout the whole book, was how defiant you were, even while they're standing there with guns, you're making jokes at them, not with them, at them. And I just thought that was absolutely incredible. And I have to ask how it felt to be going through that, because I think most of us would have been terrified. And instead it felt like you were saying, I don't respect you.
Thank you. Ala, thank you very much for this introduction. And I feel privileged that at last I have all this charm, all this wit, all this humor, all this science, all this anthropology, all this everything for me for a whole hour. That's beautiful. I think I'm privileged. Well, to answer your question, the first thing, I was sitting around 2:00 p.m., minding my business after a long, tiring day, preparing myself for a little siesta. And my wife came to me and told me the Houthis are in our porch. Armed Houthis have stormed into our yard. The first ever thing is the feeling of insult. I mean, I really, people should know this. What was the first thing? The first thing, I felt insulted. I mean, it is really rude and crude and cruel for someone to enter in your sanctuary. Yeah, this is, for me, this is the first thing. I mean, someone coming to your vital sphere, and the first reaction that you should jump and fight. So this is the first thing you should know. I knew it is a dire situation. I immediately, so there was this conflict inside me between showing extreme anger or being wise and clever. That I always have this. I mean, I try to tame myself with coming to reason very swiftly and very quickly. It is part of me. So the other thing that I think I would like to tell the world is, at that moment, I knew that the world would come with these same questions that you are coming with. What did he do? And I'm very sensitive to my reputation and to the kind of people that I like them to remember me. And people who feel that I represent them, I want them also to be proud of me. So this combination had me all the time between, okay, they should certainly know that I'm defiant. I should really not expose myself or my wife to danger. And at the same time, I really have to fulfill that intense desire to take my own back. So to answer your question, I came up with these things. I didn't think of these answers beforehand. It's just the way you came out with the question. It made me say these things.
I mean, I just think it's so interesting because so many people wouldn't have that defiance. I mean, so that the listeners know, for those of you who are not, haven't quite received your book, which I'm assuming is most of you right now, it's to the point where you ask one of the rebels that has captured you, one of the militia that's captured you, in a sarcastic term, do your slogan. And he kind of goes off and he does.
He did, and he raised his fist and did the whole show. He gave it for my benefit. I thought he would feel insulted. I thought he would answer me back with a sarcasm or with an insult or whatever. But no, he responded and did the whole thing. Yeah.
See, you're quite surprised by his response, but I was
surprised.
As I said, I was very surprised that anybody who has just been freshly, taken, yes, would actually even turn around and say, "Show us your slogan."
Yes, I was insulting him actually, yeah, but he did it.
And can I ask, where does this come from? Where does this political, but it's a very particular kind of political acumen and kind of, brilliance in many ways. Where does it come from? Because I know that there are stories of you going back to the 90s, being behind a very big petition. I think it was a 1,000 signature petition to try and get North and South Yemeni politicians to be respectful, etc., etc., so that you don't go into a second civil war. These are things that are quite, most people do not think like this. When did this start?
I think I have natural aversion to bullies. I just can't stand bullies. Whenever I see a bully, I just jump to the front. Especially if someone stood to a bully, I will keep quiet. If none did that, unfortunately, it would have to be me. This is number one that you should know. I mean, I would never let an underdog or someone who need or be bullied and just watch him. Never. Sometimes with danger, exposing myself to danger. I think this is important. The other thing, when I feel that someone is stigmatized and being exposed to nasty propaganda or defaming, it is also a kind of bullying. So I just jump to give them my name and my face and my reputation. So no, if this person is with them, right, they can't be what they say they are. I mean, these two things, the bullies and to take advantage of someone, and I should stand with them.
I guess I saw this quite a bit in the book because you are clearly for a long portion of the time the unofficial doctor of the prison, and the guards were using you a lot. I mean, how did that feel that they were using you in this way?
Oh, okay. Do you know, it is almost like going to Disneyland or to a big hiking trip if you just get out of those horrible doors. So in a way, I liked going out of those doors. This is number one. Number two, you should know that they are very nasty when they don't need you. And they can be very terrible and horrible. And they are reasonably okay when they need you. So don't take it that I was privileged in any way, right? They are just using you, and they don't mind to be nasty to you even when you are doing it. I mean, don't think that I was privileged. So these two things. The book is in 600,000. It was cut to 300,000. There were situations that I stood to the guards when they were nasty and horrible to the patients. I mean, I was defiant even to this. I told them off. Don't do that to them. I don't know. I mean, this is the thing about a doctor. He can be parental sometimes. He can have this thing, even for someone who is mightier than him or older than him. I even found that I am the parent when it is a doctor patient situation. I take that rule immediately, instantly, and automatically without thinking. I mean, no one can push me around when I'm doing the doctoring bit.
I kind of really saw that in a number of stories, but in two in particular, actually. There was one where it was just one, it was 3 words, I think. You'd basically prescribe something to one of the prisoners, and then you found out, as often you describe happens, they didn't give him the right medicine, and you said, I could cry. And it was just, those few words, end of sentence, paragraph. And I really felt it, like it was very sad and really painful. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yes, exactly. You got it right.
No, there was another story that, again, it really, I actually found it, really curious and interesting, but actually it kind of really describes what you're saying about your desire to not let the underdog be the underdog. Was the story of the Jewish Yemeni prisoner. Could you expand on that a little bit? Because obviously Yemenite Jews are not very well known to the wider world. And it was a fascinating story because of, how he was treated by the Al-Qaeda prisoners.
Yeah. They like to pick at him, either to carry out jokes or to be sarcastic. And I immediately made it automatically. I would sit beside him and try to chat him up. And they would look at me like this. Who is this one who is warming up to him? I mean, I did that whenever he is around, and I made it a point that, okay, it is that the only time that we are around is when, what I would call it, sun yard, or to have 1 hour of exposure to sun now and then. And yes, they will be sarcastic to him, and they will chat him up for long, the whole time. And they will look at me like this. I mean, why don't chat with them and chat with him? Yeah, that happened all the time. So I gathered a lot of information about him in that book, and about his attitude and mentality and how we think. He's a simple one, very simple one.
I found it so interesting, actually, the story about him and how it interacted with others, and how he agreed to get one of the rabbi's daughters to marry one of the Muslim prisoners. It was just so fascinating.
Martyrs, yes.
Again, those of you who haven't got the book, like, just open another window right now and just order it. Prison Time in Sana'a. Honestly, it's the kind of read that you can get through in 2 or 3 days, just super comfortably. And it's as I said, it's so readable, and there are so many of these absolutely fascinating stories that kind of just come out through these stories of these prisoners, and you get to learn so much about Yemen through it. There was a little bit of information there about Yemeni Jews, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. There was a fascinating story as well about the American Baptist. Could I get you to maybe give us, because I thought the parallels there, because obviously throughout the book there's a lot of Al-Qaeda militants or sympathizers that are featured all throughout the book, as well as just a lot of fundamentalists and you are much more pragmatic, maybe we can say, about religion, or that level of fundamentalism, and so I just thought the parallels that you drew there were really interesting.
Yeah. I was moved from a cell that I was with a teenager Qaeda. He was the one, he thought, he coined me as secular. And secular is no good in his dictionary. So he started to harass me. Literally harass me psychologically, and to do lots of things of brinkmanships and all these kind of things. But as usual, I am not the person who could be intimidated by anyone, whatever it is, Qaeda or Houthi or whatever it is. So I put a check on him. I managed him, but we were almost on terms of after the first day or two. After he measured me up, I just ignored him completely, and he ignored me, and there was that hostile silence between two persons. He's much stronger physically than me, and he is much different for me from me in the mind. I was 66 at that time, very, I mean, thin but fit. But yes, well, after I left his cell, as it is mentioned in the book, I was moved to Marx. Marx also is very religious. Even I can say he is Salafist in his own way. I mean, the Salafist version of Christians. For so many things, they were actually exactly the same. For the way they thought, for the way their attitude to life, to religion, to family, to everything. I think they were just a replica of each other. They were exactly the same. A relation to science, evolution, even things that has nothing to do with God and the praying and doing the rituals and things like that. Even ways of life, ways of thinking, ways of handling food, everything, they were exactly the same. So I watched and told the people indiscreetly about that.
And there was another thing that I actually was really glad that we were going to get this chance to talk, because as I was reading it, I was like, am I understanding this correctly? It was about the telephone system, or can you please explain this? Because
yeah,
I thought this was, I'm trying to get my head around this.
it is brilliant. It is brilliant. Actually, if I have to put myself in the same shock state that I first realized what they were talking about, they said, okay, well, you will know the news soon. They said, I said, what? How? They just wait and you will know. So the lack of supply of water, because they are not efficient on refilling the tanks on the roof for the water pipes for us, it can happen now and then. And and if it doesn't happen and they expect their news that they should know, they evacuated themselves by putting a towel into the tap so the guards wouldn't hear the water sound. And they empty the tanks and they start to talk. So someone would squat on that latrine hole where they respond to the calls of nature, and they will squat and put their ears under the tap, and then they will listen. And then when they talk like the old system of talking, they will go like this and talk to the tap. So they can be in communication with neighboring cells on the same level, or on the upper one, on the above, in the above floor, in the floor above. So they talked whatever. They exchange gossip, and there was someone who is highly regarded and top Qaeda, that he was also from Yemen or Faith University graduate, and he is the professional or the official dreams interpreter. So they will listen to him for hours, and they one by one they will. I want him to interpret my dreams, and if someone lost his chance, he will be angry because he will take them in a row, one after one after one after one.
So it's this absolutely incredible network that the guards couldn't quite infiltrate, and it was used to collect information and gossip, but also, and this is the mind-blowing bit, to interpret dreams, which is just, yeah, it's fascinating. It's absolutely.
They love to know the significance of they dream a lot, and they want an explanation for their dreams in case they find hope or through it.
Yeah, I think one of the things actually with the book is, as I said, I came to it expecting for me to be incredibly depressed as I was reading it. And actually, as I said, it wasn't the case. Obviously there were some bits which were really, really hard and very sad. But it was so engaging. And I kept thinking, how has he made something which is hell feel like it's manageable.
And
that makes me a little bit emotional. Like, how is this just the way, you know, you wrote it, or when you were going through it, were you able to somehow find a way of not?
It is exactly what happened. First of all, you know, someone like me who'd have read lots and lots of books, and there are books that if I find them, I will caress them and be nice to them because they give me pleasure and benefit. And some of them I finished just as when mom asked you to finish your plate with reluctance. And some books that I couldn't go to the end. So I decided if I'm going to write a book, I don't want people to be distressed or unhappy. I want them also to enjoy it. I mean, there is no need for a book to be a source of torture for the reader. And books should be nice as well. So this is number one. Number two, I think you should know that that place is horrible. Don't think it was not horrible. The cells are dark, airless, sunless. It is a dry city, Sana'a, but it was humid because of that water in the corner, and it was really humid. So if you are bound to have pains or aches, you will get them in that place. And very tight. And there is that claustrophobia thing. And also inmates themselves, I mean, like even between married people, I mean, you get fed up with them if they are in front of your eyes all the time. I mean, even inmates, they have expiry date. They can come source of torture as exactly as the jailers after a while, even if you started beautifully well together. So now to go to the second part of your question, people collapsed. I saw people bang their heads on the wall. I saw people losing their mind inside those cells and hallucinating that they're hearing the voices of their father being tortured on the other side of the wall. I saw that. I saw attempted suicide. I saw people covering their faces with blankets and cry. Just imagine, huge man cry. Some people were clever by with sleep. I mean, I saw someone who slept. I counted for them for 22 hours. He slept 22 hours a day. So he only woke up during meal times and did quickly his prayers and went back to sleep. So the third part of your question, what was my trick? I beg a guess. That's how I analyzed broke down your question.
Yeah.
For me, I knew Ala right when I was in that truck taking to the interrogation center in Taiz before they moved me to Sana'a. I figured out exactly what is going to happen to me, and I made the general plan to how I would react. I will say I will draw myself in endorphins. I will exhaust myself with exercises, and I fantasize. I like to dream and to go into fantasy sometimes. Okay, not in my age, but I can resort to an old gift to fly away. I could do that because as a kid I was also abroad alone, so I had to do this flying. And the other thing is al-qana'a, stoicism. I mean, I say I don't want anything. The moment you start to wish one thing, I mean, I can guarantee that the next moment that person would collapse. So with exercises, I exercised a lot. My record number, I would jump, or I will kick to the side, kick to the other side, to front, to back, to punch, to do even I do Tabata, Tabata high intensity exercises, training. while I'm standing or sitting or doing bridges or doing blanks and all these things. So I have, and also I count everything I did. So my record number for jumping and moving is 40,000 steps in 24 hours. Sometimes I would start these things at 2 a.m. in the morning. Dum, 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 dum. So, and 600 push-ups in 20s, 15, 10, but at the end it was, I will count them. Squats, 400. Lunge are difficult. I could only do only 100. I mean, my record number. They are difficult and they are demanding, by the way. So that's for Fantasia. Yes, I just would sit down, put that silly blanket on my face, like in those children in cartoons, and then I would start to fly away. I recalled everything that happened to me since I was very little. Yeah. Little fights, little everything.
You describe 36 hours where you managed to take yourself away and then you had to force yourself back because you were scared about where you might be.
Yeah, I had literally to pinch myself. Hey, Abdulkader, you should wake up. This is you are. I can see. I'm talking to myself. I can see that you are happy. Please, you are not supposed to be happy. Otherwise, you will lose touch with where you are. So I warn against it. So when I wanted to go back to that word, I just said no, switch off, and I came back to the real world.
Actually, I just aware of time for our listeners. You can actually forward in questions. We're about to join our panelists in a few minutes, so do send your questions through because we might be able to answer some of them. Before we add on our panelists, I kind of wanted to talk to you about the politics, because I think you were known as a political commentator. That's what was behind your arrest, let's say. Could you explain to people who the Houthis are? Because I think, obviously a lot of people don't actually understand the Yemeni politics, and there's very few people as skilled as yourself in explaining this.
The number one that you should never let it go from your mind is that they believe that they are superior. And on that sense, they are supremacists. And the source of this supremacy is that they claim that they are the descendants or the grandsons of Prophet Muhammad. Now, so what? First, so what if you are the descendants of that? And number two, let us have DNA test and compare all these people who think that they are, and see the similarities between all these people who have the same claim. But certainly, what counts is the end point. The end point is that they believe it. The number two, they stick together. Number three, they are willing to fight to death to prevail. So anyone who thinks that he can negotiate with Houthi to change their mind, or just forget about it. I mean, this is the thing about foreign analysts and foreign diplomats. Oh, no, let us split the difference. Let us give them something and take from them something, and let these people live with the other rest of people. They will never, ever give away this faith and this mentality and this attitude. Never, ever. I can swear to that. I mean, we know them. We lived with them. We sat with them. We discussed with them. There is the clever one and the nice one who would say exactly the same thing in a subtle way. And there is the crude one who would just say it in your face. So this is number one. Number two, they could have never, ever done this without Iran. All these people who trivialize the relationship between the Houthis and Iran, please spare us the argument. They have been friends with them for the last 30 years. I can talk about this for a whole another hour. I mean, I can put the landmarks of this relationship, right? And third fact about them, Houthis will never, ever give up the Iranians, because if it was not for the Iranians, they wouldn't have been here. And the Iranians will never, ever ditch the Houthis, because with them, they use them very cheaply and with very cheap price to reach the Red Sea, to reach the Indian Ocean, and to circle and throttle the Saudis from the south. So anyone who dreams that the Houthi can strike a peace deal with the rest of Yemenis, please forget about it. So this is Houthis in short.
So what's the solution then for Yemen, in your mind?
I'm sorry. Either Houthi wins, or Yemen is diverse. You should really know that. And it's beautifully diverse. There is no problem with being diverse. Diverse is nice. Diverse is good. And I can enjoy the beauty of this diversity from anywhere in Yemen. No problem with me. And most people don't have problem if they are left to their own devices. The problem comes when some branch of this diversity decide either he thinks that he is more powerful and he can take all and can control all, so he uses arms. So please, no use of arms in Yemen. No realities on the ground should be recognized if it was because of use of power, violence, and arms. This is number one. Number two, asking foreign powers to support them. Foreign powers should go out of Yemen, should have no influence, whatever it is, even those who are supporting us. But after things is stabilized, not right now. Right now, to ask the Saudis to go out is asking Yemeni to fall to Iran instantly, which is not very good.
Thank you, Doctor. It's obviously, I mean, you know, I could interview you right now for 3 hours and would still only be touching some of this. Let me bring on our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Brahoni, who is a former chair of the British Yemeni Society and has really been heavily involved with the Yemeni events since serving as a diplomat in Aden in the 70s. The doctor is an author of Yemen Divided, the co-editor of 2 books, Global, Regional and Local Dynamics in the Yemen Crisis, as well as Building a New Yemen. And John Costa, again, thank you so much for joining us. He is an independent journalist, educator and documentarian. He established Leicester's Documentary Media Centre in 2014 and uses film photography, audio and new media as a vehicle for the sustained development of community communication practices through the Global Parallel Lives Network. And of course, he also runs the Conflict Reportage Archive that develops resources for conflict memory and education. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Obviously, we've got a whole pile of questions coming in, but if any of you have a particular question you want to put forward to the doctor, there's 2 doctors with us now, so I need to be careful.
I'm not a medical doctor, though.
Yes, then please do before I jump to other people's questions.
Noel, would you like to go first?
No, I thought it was a terrific book. I mean, I liked it because it's a microcosm of what I know as Yemenis, the life stories of those prisoners with whom you're interacting. You know, it's something I can relate to, and I think anybody reading the book will relate to. they ended up in prison for all sorts of different reasons. Many of them Al-Qaeda, but others were just criminals, others were just caught up in the events of the time, but also all trying to manage them. And I thought that came out. The other thing that came out to me was just, as Ella said, your defiance, which is there, but also your humanity. I mean, the way that you actually, it just really comes through everything you've written. I mean, and the way you treated those prisoners. And I was obviously struck by, and you also, I mean, I don't want to get too much into the politics, but it was all happening at a time when the Houthis were still in effect sharing power with the former president Saleh, and one saw that in the prison authorities. The contrast between Abu Bashir, the Houthi, in charge of prison, and Ahmad Shamakh, who was the Saleh one, sort of old professional. I thought that was very interesting because that really set the scene for what happened later when, of course, the Houthis killed Saleh at the end of December the following year, in 2017. So I thought that was a fascinating part.
Doctor, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and support your book launch. I noticed there were some really interesting questions coming in, so I'll be very quick with my comments so we can get you answering some of those questions. But I kind of read your book on several levels, really. One from someone who teaches social media to students, particularly in a conflict memory concept, of how you are using it to share the real narrative, if you like, the lived experience of something that anybody that has not gone as either a visitor previously or a journalist, as most of them are commenting on through Twitter, you're showing what it's like actually on the ground. And then the people that you meet in jail that you describe so well are almost using social media as a way of creating this false narrative of how they're living their life. Absolutely fascinating interactions, and I'm not going to spoil any of it for anybody to buy the book, but the particular one around, you know, the wedding where the guy gets arrested and is in prison because he's gone somewhere else because to marry someone from there is cheaper than where he's from, and then someone who's there because he believes that, and he had a conversation with you that he couldn't wait to be martyred because it would be he would either be given a wife for free or he was going to heaven anyway. So I think from a social media point of view, it's something that students should read. I think it's a really interesting way of looking at some other conflicts as well that have happened around the world. I think as someone who's been to prison as well, I've had a prison experience, the humour that you capture on both sides, both the guards and the people that you incarcerate with, are fascinating. I do love the whole communicating through the water pipes. I think most movies would have people tapping messages out World War II style, whereas you're actually emptying the water and talking to each other. That's fascinating. Again, it's from an incarceration point of view. I'll certainly be recommending it to students that I talk to about my own prison experience, because I think you describe it so well. And finally, I think when the war is over and the conflict comes to an end, there'll be lots written about facts, figures, how many people were killed, who the protagonists were on both sides. But I think you've absolutely captured there really beautifully, really, the fact that it is ordinary people, and it's the fact that you describe these people that you come across with a care for them, both as a doctor, but I also think going back to your time as a mayor, where obviously you care about where you're from and the people that, that your duty of care was. And I think even Ella even mentioned this massive petition that you got to keep the peace going when things were getting rough. I think that's one of the main things for me that will come out, that this book will be the one that actually will tell people what it was like, what the impact was on the real or ordinary lives, families and stuff. And I think, just to sum it up, you say it in the book as well, so I can only repeat that, give you the last word, is you can't help us if you don't understand us. And I think that's a blueprint for so many conflicts, probably Afghanistan at the moment as well, that could be taught much more widely. So it was a real pleasure to do it, and it's an absolute honor here to be supporting your book, so thank you.
Thank you.
Can I actually just jump on something that John just said? which was social media. How do you feel about social media? Because obviously kind of 2011, we were hailing social media as potentially bringing in democracy to the Middle East and North Africa. How do you feel about social media today, having been so prolific during the so-called Arab Spring in Yemen with social media, Twitter and what have you?
For me?
Yes, sorry. Yes.
Oh, this is
sorry.
Yeah, okay. By the way, I was just following what was going on in Egypt on their January events, 2011. And then the word Twitter kept coming. What's this Twitter? I mean, what's this Twitter? At that time, then I read the international press everywhere. Thanks for the internet, but I haven't heard about Twitter. So I give, what's this Twitter? So Twitter, until I found what it is, and then I found what is hashtag, and then I knew after that what the Egyptians did with Twitter and how they fooled the security and how they will have these mass marches with cheating the very strong intelligence apparatus and securities. And okay, I started to write 2, 3, 4 words in Arabic, non-response. Again, no response. And then I found out what's the meaning of hashtag. So I started to do Yemen hashtag in English. And when I started that, I had hundreds every day, 100 followers. So I think this is important way of answering your question. We didn't know anything about social media. And then we understood what is hashtag. And then we communicated with extreme power that was reserved only for the big authorities and the big people with big pockets for that. So the average man had a go, and someone who can say that he is a representative of the silent majority can jump into the scene and have followers, and they listen to him exactly in the same way as the ones with Ministry of Informations and apparatuses of propaganda and all these machines, kitchen machines, that they are so plethoric or proliferative. So yes, social media is the new thing of these times. It is a sign of these times.
And you still feel positively about it today?
Well, when I see what it did to COVID, when I see that they are using your tool, I mean, it is a bad source of information and of influence for COVID. And the other side is developing skills to outmaneuver you and to troll you, and they're trolls who won't spoil that act. So yes, I mean, I have to block a dozen of people every day who are smearing me or insulting me or doing things like this. At the beginning, I felt angry, and they were all wrong. And you can tell, by experience, you know that they are trolls. So it's just the easiest thing is block, mute, block, and that's it. Bye-bye. And the people who would like to listen to you, they would stick. Yeah, no one can take the social media away, and its influence is there to stay.
Yeah,
it is there to stay, and it is a game changer.
Yeah, so there's 4 questions that I really want to address. So, if possible, if you can kind of give us the lightning response to each of them. I will ask Noel and John to feel free to kind of interrupt as well. So one question is, are you still in contact with any of your cellmates? How about the American prisoner?
Ooh, yes, there are so many, and so many they love me so much. And yes, we do. Oh, okay, I would rather not to talk about Mark.
We understand.
Yeah, I helped Mark with a court case, and I was witness for him. Okay. The book ends with on the day of my release. I didn't write anything in hindsight, right? But after that, I was instrumental of inviting him to the United Nations building, him and his wife. So I met him in New York, right? And there are lots of things that I shouldn't say, but yes, we are in good. Okay. I am more in touch with his wife than with him.
Well, yes, there's another question here about the wife that you shared cookies with. They ask, did you ever find out what happened to him? But please, Doctor, if you don't want to say it, you can just tell us on our next question, and that's okay too.
What said the question again?
Oh, sorry. Somebody said, did you ever find out what happened to him?
To Mark?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know. He was released 1 month before me.
Okay.
And I could, you know, thanks to Google, I searched him up and I made the effort to contact him. But maybe I think he is asking about John Hammond.
Right. Okay.
John Hammond is the one who was killed inside the jail, I think, because this is a big story. And a big story.
Then moving on, I understand you were invited to speak to the UN. How was that?
Oh, this is what I call the panda. They love you. They say, oh, good man. They make you feel a celebrity and you start to believe yourself that you are something. And then, bye-bye. Exactly like when you go to the zoo and you are fascinated by the panda, and then they, okay, bye-bye panda, and then go to the other cage, which is natural. I don't blame. I don't complain. I never judge or complain. I just describe things as they are. They're useless, the United Nations.
No, you're laughing at that. It felt like it hit a truth with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is the you know, 5 minutes a celebrity, etc. Yeah. No, I was also interested on the Twitter question because you know I try and follow social media in as much as I can on Yemen, and you know you have to look at the whole diversity to try and understand what's happening. But because there's just so many different narratives, I mean, you know, there was the looking in terms of the current conflict, there's the sort of legitimacy narrative, I suppose, is restoring the current government. There's the Houthi narrative, there's the Iranian narrative, which we've heard, and they're all very, very different, and they reflect, I think, these wide differences, you know, and why this conflict is continuing. You know, it doesn't come out quite in the book, but you can see the elements of it. You know, Yemen has been in war for 6 years. You know, and there's really no sign of it ending. This is one of the great tragedies, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting as well, asking different Yemenis and kind of experts in the field how they see a solution, and the general thing that you tend to hear is, I have to say, is this is a difficult one, you know. And that's a very, very depressing response, I think.
Yes. Yeah. A compromise, and people are not ready for compromise, it seems, which is a problem.
Do you think, Doctor, do you think the people aren't willing to compromise? That's a general theme.
There is no way that a solution will be reached without these two conditions. Use of force, use of arms shouldn't pay. Like crime shouldn't pay, use of arms, use of force should not pay. I mean, you can't, I mean, they are minorities and they want to have facts, to do things on the ground that are considered facts and realities, which are not realities. So it will take its curve and then will disappear. But during that curve, we will suffer. So number one rule fact for any mediator or any foreigners who are trying to help, no use of force, please. Number two, foreign influence out, because they have tools, they create them, they nurture them, they feed them, they arm them, so, and they start to come against us. I mean, anyway, I mean, you bring someone from planet Mars, and let him give some money and some Kalashnikovs and some drones, and then he will be the new facts on the ground. We reject for these people who are not natural and not realities of the ground to be considered our masters or our facts on the ground. So only peace can happen only with two things: no use of arms, no influence of foreigners. Period. Two things. Otherwise, there is no peace whatsoever.
And both of those don't look particularly
No,
promising.
if we had really, okay, there was a dream that there is something called United Nations, there is international community, and there is a superpower that cares for Yemen, which they all turned up to be mirage, to be delusions, to be illusions, to be nothing. So one of the new factors now is the international community, which people in Yemen really don't trust them anymore. They are not trusted, the international community, among any Yemeni, on either side.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah, sorry, carry on.
Because they bring some analysts and they employ some Yemenis in centers or otherwise, and they feed them, or the process of being the interaction between them develop new ways of thinking, which they think they can be implemented on us, which are wild. I mean, this marriage or interaction is not really, I mean, when we look at them, we say, what? What? Are you discussing us? Are you thinking for us? Neither of you is us. We don't feel, but then there is that cloud or sense of superiority of the foreigners or Europeans or the Americans and the superpowers and the rich and the able and the armed and the sophisticated. So they should be right. But they don't. They don't click. They don't click. Even if they, because of the money they spend, they look that they are prevailing, but they are not.
In 30 seconds, I'm sorry, we're coming to the end now. In 30 seconds, would you, you said that you were in complete shock at being released. Somebody has a question to say, do you think it was the campaigning from your supporters that got you out, or was it influential individuals?
Everyone said he did something, and every group did something. Even the UN envoy, even people who worked for Abbas, even for Saleh, even people who worked for Houthis, right? Everyone said he was, okay. For me, I'm grateful to that woman who is a Hashemite, and she was a neighbor, and she was moved to Sana'a, and she put on her sharshaf, her burqa, right? And went to Muhammad Ali al-Houthi himself. And she said, I'm not going out from here. I mean, I was told this story. Unless you release Abdulkader. I said, but we don't know that he is with us. I mean, he denied. I know a journalist who had a chance to meet al-Houthi, and he said to her, we don't know, where is he? I can write a whole book about everyone who said that he was instrumental in my release.
That's interesting. And that leads me on to the very last question, and we've got to keep this one really, really brief. Leads on very well actually from yours, from your last point, which is the women you meet in part 2. So this is Tawakkul Karman, the Nobel laureate, and one of the Bashas. Are they representative of Yemeni women?
Okay. I will say things as they happened. First, I was thrilled because men couldn't stand Saleh. Men could, no one dare to sign it. So we had this jewel. We had this surprise that we had few women who jumped into the arena. And we know that no one can touch women. So they have this privilege, this liberty to be our spearhead or our pioneers or to take our flag. I love them. Even those, I call them the black oceans. I mean, those Islah or Muslim brothers, women in veils that they flooded the street. I can claim that I was instrumental in pushing Islah to bring more of this, because this, I mean, I kept telling them, please, these women are effective. These women are internally and to the outside world, because if women are outside, that means that it is not between parties, because the woman is the last one who should ask for violence, to ask for rebellion, or to ask for whatever, right? So because women by nature, it should be asking for stability and for security. But if women comes out, that means it is serious. So they care. But okay, that's the first part of your question. Second part, I always say what counts is the end point. The end point. The end point. It was a stream. Women with stream like this, very influential, and then it diversifies everyone to a new branch that I was not as much impressed as when they were on that job.
So that pretty much brings us on the dot to the end of the book launch. I have to thank Joel and Joel. Sorry, I've done a combination of names now. I'm sorry. The boy band, Joel, John and Noel. John, we didn't get a chance to talk about your own imprisonment, but you are online, so people can direct questions there. Please, please, please buy this book. It is absolutely brilliant. Recommend it to friends. Tweet about it. Prison Time in Sana'a. It has an introduction by Stephen Day. Again, it can be found on online, all the usuals from Amazon to others, as well as Arabian-publishing.com. It's £20 sterling in the UK. It's $23 in the US. Open a tab right now and just go ahead and buy it. You honestly won't regret this. I can't give a big enough stamp to this one. But mostly, Dr. Thank you so much for putting your life on the line to get the word out about Yemen, our beautiful and dear Yemen. It's very, very it's a real privilege for me to sit here knowing what you sacrificed and the risks that you took that were very much realized. I'm so glad that you are, thank God, safe in Canada. But a million thanks to you and your family for everything you've gone through, and may we all learn a little bit from you, Dr. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and please take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.